Hello. Um, Probably a slightly different type of message. Hi. It's Friday. I treated myself to a movie tonight. Something I don't do very often. The town I live in, there's this great little theater called the Apollo, and it's an old converted theater, but they're cheaper. It's like $5 or $6 to get in, as opposed to 20 most places or whatever they're charging now. Anyway, so I went and saw the new Predator movie, Predator Badlands. Highly recommended it. Very fucking cool movie. Like, yeah, it was. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward plot. It's not like suspenseful or anything. But great cinematography and stuff, and just yeah, very cool. Good movie. Definitely worth it. Um, I don't know if I'll go tomorrow night or next week, but I want to see the new Frankenstein movie that's coming out too. It actually just got released as well. That one looks really good too. So if you get the opportunity, go see the new Predator movie. Um, cool thing is, because I live in a little college town, um, there, I think it's all this month, or at least tonight anyway. I could have stayed for it and I didn't. Uh, Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I haven't actually seen that in the theater in a long time. I'm Some of you know my age, but it's been, I don't know, probably 30 years since I've seen that in the theater. It was always a good time, especially if you go with the right crowd and everyone like knows the songs and knows like what props to bring and this kind of, yeah, it could be a lot of fun. It's I definitely recommend that as an experience at some point. So, um, man, has this full moon been, whew, I don't know about you all, but it's definitely, I'm feeling it up, down, left, right, all over the place. Crazy intense dreams. Oh my God, so many dreams. I can't even remember them all. Um, I remember parts of them. Had an interesting one last night. A particular person from my past showed up again, and they were talking with somebody. Uh, Two or three individuals, actually. It was a group of women total. And it was interesting because this person, like, I was looking at, it was like I was a fly on the wall kind of thing. And their face kept changing into like these different, for lack of better terms, demonic skulls. It was like flash and come back to regular, flash and come back to regular. It was like almost like they were struggling to contain something. It was very interesting. And then I distinctly remember seeing a picture with four different snake heads, and the women they were talking to. I'm not going to get into the details of what they were discussing, but essentially it was information about uh, my level of protection and a few other things. And whatever they discovered scared them quite a bit. They were like, no, not touching it, not going near it. Sorry, can't help you, kind of thing. Very interesting dream. um, because then it rolled into something else. I was like in some big house or something, and there was all these people I knew. Like my sisters were there. There was all these kids running around, and other people from my past who've passed over. One of them was, I forgot to tell my sister this too. It was one of her ex-husbands who's passed. He was there at one point. And I can't remember what I was doing. I was at some point, I think I was trying to access information on a computer or a video game or something, and people kept interrupting. It was odd. It was a very long and drawn out dream. That's all I can remember of it. It's been a long day. It was a long, rainy, wet day at work. Season's almost over at the golf course. We're pulling different things off the course today. Bunker rakes and this kind of stuff, which means we're about that close to shutting it down. Which means I'm that close to trying to figure out what I'm going to do this winter. The problem in a set of videos for some time else. For those of you who've watched the collaboration videos between me and my sister, we do plan on picking that series back up this weekend. Life has been lifing, and we just haven't had the opportunity to connect. I'm finally getting used to my new glasses. I'm enjoying them much. It was nice actually when I went to the movie that I didn't have to like sit halfway or even closer up, and yeah, it was nice. They're long overdue. So I had a conversation with my sister earlier about it's funny, my last relapse. I don't blame anyone for it but myself. Um, but even leading up to it, there were a lot of people who, for lack of better terms, were slandering my name behind my back, making accusations, and essentially making me out to be a monster, which, when I'm in active addiction, rightly so. I can't even deny. Um, so, I wanted a monster, I became one. But it's funny because, there was shortly after I had relapsed and was in active addiction, um, there was a person that her and I had parted ways. And I, while still in active addiction, managed to save up a substantial amount of money to buy them a very specific and very special gift. Unfortunately, I had to give it to a third party to get to her and tell a little bit of a lie as far as who it came from so that she would actually accept it. My knowledge, she did. I've never gotten 100% confirmation on that. So, but it's funny how it's just one of the other ways that people have always underestimated me. And this particular person, gift giving happens to be their love language. So it was a thought that popped in my head earlier today. I was like curious as to if they ever actually figured that out. You know, who knows? Just a random thought. Been kind of stressful at the house. People have been getting a lot of lessons. You can definitely tell it's retrograde. People have been getting a lot of lessons, past or previous lessons that they thought they had already learned coming back up. Um, my old sponsor, as a matter of fact, had come through the house, and he was expressing feeling a bit hurt. One of his other sponsees, who he was, well, as he calls it, who he was mentoring. Um, Being in a faith-based house is not just 12-step and sponsoring. It has a tendency to go a little deeper than that. I guess you could say turns into a form of spiritual mentorship, which to me there's really not much difference. Basically the same thing. You're guiding somebody through a tumultuous period in their life on different ways they can heal and how to utilize the tools they're learning. Um, yeah, so at any rate, some of the views he were expressing, I've heard him express before. About a year ago, actually a little longer than a year ago, maybe. There was a period where, both me and my one good friend were two of his sponsees, and he had several others in the house, and he'd gotten really frustrated and somewhat hurt in the fact that a lot of his sponsees weren't leaning on him really heavily, not in the way that he thought. He had a certain expectation as to what sponsees or, being a mentor to somebody meant. Um, and when those expectations weren't met, of course, he felt slightly hurt and or rejected and so forth and so on. And he was expressing some of those concerns this evening about another individual. And granted, not to the same extent, but pretty much the same lesson again. And I listened, and I'll play devil's advocate both ways. The person in question, I understand their behavior from a certain standpoint. They moved out of the house, they got their own place, they're working a lot, they work nights, they've just started to prioritize their life and themselves more. Um, at the same time, from the outside looking in, some of their behavior changes do put up some red flags, and I understand this person's concerns. So I listened and I listened, and I looked at him. I said, despite all of that, yes, they could all be red flags. Your concerns are probably genuine and warranted. Um, the person's showing a lot of signs of potential relapse, um, certain isolation patterns and things like this. They're just certain things. As a fellow addict looking at another addict in recovery, it's very easy for us to spot when somebody might be going down a slippery slope. At any rate, I said to him, I said, just food for thought. I said, maybe it's just another lesson for you to learn to change and or lower those expectations you have about what it means to be a mentor and what it means to be a sponsor. You seem to have this expectation that it means that this person is going to essentially be, not only at your beck and call and do whatever you say the way you do it, and granted, yes, sure, you developed a friendship and that kind of stuff, and that's where you feel slighted and hurt, And I pointed out to him, like my best friend who relapsed, I said that would be like me basically allowing his behavior to trigger me to go back out. I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm not giving anyone that power over me ever again. I have before in the past, and I will not. I absolutely refuse to do it again, especially now that I'm aware of it. You know, um, and he kind of, it's one of those things. And same thing, I was talking to another guy in the house, and he's going through some issues with an ex and his brother, and there was a lot of stuff. Same thing, a lot of slanders, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of betrayal, a lot of lies, sort of stuff. And it's getting all bent out of shape about it. And it's like I finally said to him at one point, I said, look, man, I said, regardless of what these people want, I said, you're the one who makes the decision as to whether or not you're going to be involved with them. I get it. You care about them. I get it. You want the truth. You want this. You want vindication. You want justification. Sometimes you don't always get it, And he was talking about how it's starting to develop into a resentment against God and this sort of thing. you know, he's waiting on a settlement, and he keeps talking about how, oh, once that comes through, I'll be able to dedicate more stuff to my spirituality and this, and I'll be able to move out and have peace. And I said to him, I said, you ever stop and think that maybe the reason it keeps getting delayed is because you need to just do that regardless? I said, look at it from the standpoint of, if you weren't getting this settlement at all, what's stopping you from developing a better relationship with a God of your understanding and your own spirituality? You're the only one that's stopping that. And every time somebody calls you out on it and you get all bent out of shape and hurt and upset, well, that's you masking your own guilt. Here this person is getting involved with all these people from his past who he allowed to disrupt his peace before, and he's doing it again. And I pointed that out to him. I'm like, dude, when you first got here, I'm like, you had cut all those people out of your life. I said, and you were doing great. Why do you keep allowing them to affect you like that? And I get it. It's easier said than done. There are still people, places, and things that can trigger me very easily. The difference is I stop myself now and I say, wait a minute, why I ask myself, I do the work. Why am I so triggered? Why is this bothering me so much? Ah, yeah. Sometimes the light's all shining on me, other times I can barely see it. you know, it just harkens back to the same stuff I've talked about before many times. That's the difference between being in a constant state of reaction and instead being in a state of creation. Being in the flow instead of just going with the flow. And there is a difference. I know it doesn't sound like there is, but there is. And that's really, as I've answered before, the difference between being clean and living in sobriety. Living in sobriety, which has a lot more meaning to me now than it ever has before. Previous, it's not just from drugs and alcohol. It's from different types of behavior. It's from people pleasing. It's from seeking validation. It's from all kinds of stuff. And this might actually be another topic that me and my sister will probably cover. Several, actually. One of them was probably going to be cross addiction and a few other things. Maybe we'll get into the whole codependency thing. I got to finish reading the Coda book. I have one actually, inspired by somebody. So yeah, it's been an interesting full moon, that's for sure. So hmm, not bad, just interesting. I could ramble on for quite a while, but I'll leave it at that. I hope everyone has a blessed evening.